Hello, and welcome to my Honest Sex book summary. I know that life is busy and time is short, and so you may not be able to read the whole book, but I still want you to have the important parts so that you can explore this and benefit from it. And the reality is that Honest Sex is a book that's about so much more than sex. It's about communication, it's about intimacy, it's about knowing yourself. And sex is a byproduct in a way or a result. You get to have lifelong intimacy, connection, and sex through being more honest in the ways that I'm going to talk about here. So, honest sex is about much more than physicality. And the way I see it is that honesty and authenticity are a portal to deeper love and connection. And I'm using these tools constantly. I started dating my partner a couple years ago when the book came out, and he read the whole book, and we've been practicing ever since. So, whether you have done any kind of personal growth or therapy or any tantra or sexual practices, if you've done none of that, this book can still be really useful for you. And if you've done all of it, as has been my life experience, it's still really powerful. And there are still upgrades you can make. And I find that many people who've done therapy or practices for much of their life, there's still something different that a lot of people are missing. And it's relational. It's how to actually connect with each other in a way where you feel heard and seen and understood, and you therefore feel safe. And the safety builds trust and respect, and it's the foundation for spark to thrive and to ignite. There are 3 parts of the book. It breaks down into the first part, mature honesty, how to have more of it, because what I talk about is that we need an upgrade in our culture for honesty, because honesty often looks like I'm just saying it like it is, right? Honesty looks like, well, you're being an asshole, and this is what I think, and so I'm being honest. But the concept of mature honesty is around how do you use honesty in a way to create connection? And how do you bring honesty in a way that's actually more true and real, that somebody can't argue? Because people can argue how you're being. People can say, I'm not being an asshole. You're saying I'm being an asshole. You're being an asshole. Then we're having this whole argument. The second section of the book, What is Sex Actually?, talks about what sex is beyond our common definitions. And as I was researching the book, I found that the definition of sex in dictionaries was so limited, and it just lacked any kind of nuance. And most of what people talk about sex is intercourse. It's all physical. And the reality is that limited definitions cause a lot of pain and suffering, because when people don't understand that sex can be so much more, and that sex can be a way of connecting, not just physically, but also emotionally and energetically and even spiritually, as people actually start to realize that sex can be all of this, we can have more of it. And we can stop feeling so limited, and there are fewer fights about it, and things become more pleasurable and more intimate. And then the third part is how to talk about sex in a way that does not kill your sex life. And there are tools for more connected sex. And I titled one of the chapters, How to Talk About Sex in a Way That Doesn't Kill Your Sex Life, because so many people come to me and are so worried that if they start to talk about sex, then their sex life is going to die. It's going to take all the spark. It's going to take all the excitement out of sex. And what I've found, and what I've found with my clients, is that you can actually learn to talk about sex in a way that is sexy, in a way that's playful, and in a way that actually ignites your sex life. So let's look at the first one, mature honesty. It's a foundation of relationship success. So let's look at, why is it worth it? Why is it worth it to go to the pain or the struggle sometimes of transforming something you really want to say, something, you just want to get out there, and you want to blame, or you want to shame, or you want to I mean, sometimes we don't even know that we're doing this, but we want to be right. And we want to make a point, and we want someone to feel what we're feeling. So why is it worth it in those moments to be more vulnerable and more responsible with our honesty? Well, the reality is that immature honesty kills intimacy, connection, and passion. And it does that because it's telling somebody how they are. It's putting them on the defensive. It's attacking someone in a way where they feel cut down. They don't feel inspired to step into their best self. They feel shut down. And then what happens next is they want to attack back. So mature honesty is a foundation because it elevates our conversations. It allows us to move in this kind of upward spiral where we get to know each other a little bit more each time instead of defending ourselves more each time we have an upset or a conflict. If you think about the defenses and the walls that go up, and for some people, they go up and they stay up for decades, or things just get pushed under the rug and not talked about in a way that actually resolves what's happening. And that is painful. And then what I find is that people look to date nights, or they want to try lingerie, or just hoping that their love and sex life will get better, rather than actually developing this kind of mature honesty and actually talking about it. What I know and what my clients have learned is that conflict is not about the surface tensions. It's not about the garbage. It's not about our finances. It's not about the kids. It's not about sex, even when it seems to be about all of these things. It's about how we connect and communicate about them. So if you're watching, you can see that this couple is having a fight. The reality is they could talk about this, communicate about this in a very different way. So if you're feeling unseen, misunderstood, unsupported, then you're not going to get to resolve a conflict. And as we upgrade our honesty, conflict decreases, understanding increases. So we start to go from having more tension and upset and resentment and frustration and irritation to this, I would call it a softening. I would call it a feeling more connected, a deepening, and a trust, and a sense that I can bring you something and you can bring me something, and we can actually work this out together. That is a foundation for sex and spark to ignite. When there's conflict and misunderstanding and frustration, it's not very sexy. Think about your typical conversations. This is where you get to self-reflect. When you have a conversation, and I say without judgment here to think about this, so to be curious with yourself and not judge yourself, but ask yourself, do your typical conversations include blaming and attacking? Do they include defensiveness? Do they include making yourself right and someone else wrong? Do they include black and white thinking where it's one way or another, my way or the highway? Do they include shutting down and believing that something is impossible rather than let's see what else is possible here? Just nothing's possible. It's not going to happen. And really shutting something down before you even explore it. It takes courage, right? It takes courage to go beyond these ways of having conversations, this way of being honest. It takes courage to be vulnerable and to take some risks to say what could rock the boat or what you don't want someone to see about you. But if you don't, then relationships fizzle, passion fades, or eventually relationships fall apart. So here is the summary of mature honesty and how you can practice it. Mature honesty goes deeper than our initial reactions. So how do you practice this? You inquire deeper into what is going on for me. Why am I really upset? Is it actually about how someone is cleaning the kitchen? Or is it about the fact that I don't feel supported? You can inquire into that for yourself, but oftentimes it's so much deeper than the first thing that we're upset about. Mature honesty goes deeper and sees more than right or wrong, black or white. And how we do that is we consider that there are nuanced perspectives and that other perspectives are valid, not just your own, even if it's just like you want to give them a 10%. Okay, let someone be at least 10% valid so that you can start to consider their perspective. And how might this actually be true as well? Mature honesty recognizes that we are more than our personality or our ego. How do we do this? We consider which parts of ourself are here. We have many parts of ourself, and oftentimes there are parts that are not very mature, not very developed. There are these young parts inside of ourselves. We don't have to make that wrong, but I talk in the book about how we can consider which part we're relating from. And this has been huge for me because I have often heard in my head a very blaming, shaming, attacking voice. I grew up in that environment. So I then get to consider, is that what I want to say out loud? Do I actually want to say that? Or do I want to find what's deeper, what's truer, and then communicate from there? Which part am I letting drive the bus, you could say? Mature honesty involves self-revealing. How do we do that? We go beyond the defenses and the parts where we want to protect ourselves, and we actually be vulnerable about what's going on for us. Mature honesty is self-responsible. So again, similarly, how do we do that? We remove the blame, the shame, the attack, and we share. This is what's happening for me. This is how I'm feeling hurt or unseen or disrespected, right? This is the impact. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling lonely. I'm feeling hopeless. Rather than speaking about somebody else, saying, you are being this way. Mature honesty is desires-based, not complaint-based. How do we do this? When we have a complaint, we find the desire that that complaint reveals. So I believe that complaint and desire are like two sides of a coin. For every complaint we have a desire. And I will say in my past, I was a big complainer. And I thought, well, I've said it enough times now that I've spoken my desire. If someone can't hear it, then I have to complain. What I believe now is that it's just not worth it. When we share complaints, nobody hears them. They close their ears, they feel deflated, they don't feel seen or appreciated. And so as you can find the desire, that is a more mature kind of honesty. Mature honesty stays current rather than dredging up the past. How do you do that? You stay with the current moment. So instead of you always do this, you always do that, or every time you walk in the door, it's like this, or, every time we try to make love, this happens. Instead, you stay with the current situation. This is what's happening right now. This is what I'm struggling with. And you leave the past in the past. Mature honesty stays open to possibility and sees everything as a doorway to connection. How do you do that? You ask what else is possible. You ask how this could connect us more. I might be upset right now, but how can this create more connection? I might feel frustrated, irritated, angry. How can I share this? Or how can I be honest about this in a way that would connect us more? And when I said you leave the past in the past, there are times and places where we can bring up the past, especially if you're with a coach or a therapist, or you're having a conversation that's outside of that moment of that struggle. But I will say the more you stack the past on, especially in a moment that is not enjoyable, right? That's frustrating, the harder it's going to be. Mature honesty creates more connection, and it de-escalates by self-revealing instead of blaming and shaming. So here are a couple examples. Instead of saying, you're pissing me off, you could say, my heart is pounding, or I'm feeling scared, or I'm feeling really angry. Instead of saying, you're doing it wrong, you could say, I'm feeling worried. Instead of, I can't believe you did it that way, you could say, oh, I'm noticing how different we are. And you'd probably follow that up with, all right, I think I would do it this way, but I'm going to try and see how your way could possibly work. Or can we talk about some collaboration here and how we might work on this together? Instead of fuck you or I hate you, you could say simply, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling hurt, I'm feeling upset. So all of these are de-escalating and shifting from blame or shame to self-revealing. All right, so here's what you can do. If you want to take this deeper, you can explore for yourself what is one way you tend to be immature with your honesty. What is a way that you tend to blame or shame or attack, or you don't take responsibility, you put it all on someone else. You don't acknowledge that every dynamic has two sides. And so start to look at, how do you tend to be immature with your honesty? And then how can you shift this to practice being more mature? How can you step up or up level your honesty to create a foundation of safety, a foundation of respect, and a foundation where spark actually gets to ignite? If you want to explore this deeper, I'm going to make another couple videos where I explore parts 2 and parts 3 and summarize them so that you don't have to read the whole book if you don't have time, or if you want to read it later. For now, if you want more support, if you're struggling with this, and if you could use some expert guidance on this, you can schedule an effortless love and sex consultation. I love hearing from people. So if you have questions or revelations as you're listening to this or as you're reading the book, please email me. You can reach me at shayna@shaynajamescoaching.com. All right. Keep an eye out for parts 2 and 3 and reach out to me if you need more support.